November 11th, 2012. A quiet neighborhood wakes up to horror when a man is found dead with a bullet lodged in his skull. Before the sun fully rises, police already have a suspect. His name is John McAfee, the millionaire tech pioneer whose antivirus software once ran on nearly half the world's computers. When officers arrive to question him, he's already gone, and what follows quickly turns into something no one expects. McAfee disappears, then resurfaces, then vanishes again. He stages his own death twice, bribes his way out of a Guatemalan detention cell just hours before extradition, and evades the FBI for over a year while sailing on a yacht, openly mocking authorities on Twitter, sometimes even sharing misleading clues about his location. Every time the net tightens, he slips away. Multiple countries issue warrants, Interpol joins the hunt, and the United States deploys international resources to capture one man, yet every single time he stays free. This isn't just the story of a fugitive, it's a blueprint for how one individual made the most powerful governments on Earth look completely unprepared. To understand how he did it, we have to go back to the beginning. In 1987, in Silicon Valley, John McAfee writes a tiny program, barely a dozen lines of code, that will change his life forever. Personal computers are spreading rapidly, and with them comes a new threat: computer viruses. One of the first, known as the brain virus, spreads through floppy disks like a digital disease, triggering widespread panic. McAfee, then a programmer at Lockheed Martin, recognizes both the danger and the opportunity. In his spare time, he creates a virus detection tool and names it VirusScan. Within weeks, companies begin calling. Within months, he quits his job. McAfee Associates is born, initially run straight out of his car. But John's genius isn't just technical, it's psychological. In interviews, he warns that viruses could financially cripple corporations, amplifying fear just enough to push desperate IT managers toward his product. The strategy works perfectly. By 1990, nearly half of the Fortune 100 rely on McAfee antivirus. Revenue explodes, doubling every few months, and John McAfee becomes a Silicon Valley icon, the man who brought order to the digital frontier. But he hates it. Boardrooms suffocate him. Earnings calls feel like shackles. He complains about answering to shareholders, regulators, and lawyers. Too many people telling him how to live. This is a man who was expelled from a PhD program for sleeping with a professor's daughter, fired from jobs for showing up high, and notorious for hosting bizarre rituals and outrageous parties just to provoke authority. Corporate life feels like prison. In 1993, he cashes out, selling his shares for around $100 million and walking away from the empire that bears his name. At 48 years old, he is free. For a while, he drifts through yoga retreats, experimental aircraft, and Eastern philosophy, but nothing satisfies him. Then comes 2008. The financial crash wipes out most of his fortune, collapsing his wealth from hundreds of millions to just a few $1,000,000. Instead of humbling him, it radicalizes him. McAfee becomes convinced that governments and institutions exist solely to drain individual freedom. He publicly declares he will never let the state control his life, and in 2009, he leaves the United States to Belize. No extradition treaty, no IRS, and minimal oversight. To McAfee, it's paradise. He buys a beachfront home and later a jungle compound, hires armed guards, ex-convicts, and local muscle, and builds a crude laboratory where he claims to be researching herbal antibiotics capable of defeating superbugs. He surrounds himself with young girlfriends, loyal staff, and fear-based obedience. Locals whisper that the American millionaire is unstable, maybe dangerous. By day, he flies ultralight aircraft over turquoise water. By night, he throws wild parties where automatic weapons are displayed like decorations. He launches a company called Quorum X to legitimize his experiments. To outsiders, he appears eccentric, but beneath the surface, something darker is forming. His paranoia intensifies. He clashes with neighbors, antagonizes criminals, and fails to understand one critical truth. Belize is not a place where outsiders bend the rules forever. On April 30th, 2012, Belize's gang suppression unit storms McAfee's compound without warrants. Armed officers force everyone against the wall at gunpoint. McAfee's dogs charge and one is shot dead. McAfee screams in rage as officers tear the property apart for hours, seizing weapons and chemicals but finding no drugs. The only charge is possession of an unlicensed firearm. He spends a night in Belize's notorious holding cell and is released the next morning, but something inside him snaps. John McAfee becomes convinced the government wants him dead. In November 2012, McAfee's dogs are poisoned. One by one, they collapse and die. Devastated and furious, he orders them euthanized to end their suffering. Just one day later, a gunshot echoes through the night. The following morning, his neighbor Gregory Fowle is found dead, a single bullet to the back of his head, execution style. When police arrive to question McAfee, his compound is empty. He has already vanished. McAfee flees into the jungle with his girlfriend Samantha, hiding underground, literally buried in sand while police search nearby. For days, he moves between safe houses, warehouses, fishing shacks, and jungle hideouts as Belize deploys roadblocks, dogs, and helicopters. They find nothing. 3 days later, under cover of darkness, McAfee pays for an illegal boat crossing into Guatemala. There are no records and no passport stamps. He escapes, but he can't resist the spotlight. He contacts Vice magazine, offering exclusive access. Photos are published, and the story goes viral. Then a hacker points out a fatal mistake. The images contain GPS metadata. Within hours, Guatemalan police know exactly where he is. On December 5, 2012, McAfee is arrested, facing deportation back to Belize, which he believes would be a death sentence. McAfee fakes a heart attack, convincingly enough to delay the process. The delay works. Instead of Belize, Guatemala deports him to the United States. McAfee walks free once again. Back in America, he becomes a spectacle, releasing viral videos, announcing a presidential run, and reinventing himself as a cryptocurrency prophet. But the IRS is watching. In 2019, he is indicted for tax evasion. Rather than surrender, he flees again, this time by sea. For 18 months, he hops countries by yacht, taunting authorities online, relying on constant movement and constant publicity to stay ahead, until it finally ends. On October 5, 2020, in Spain, his passport is flagged and he is arrested. This time, there is no escape. On June 23, 2021, inside a Spanish prison cell, just hours after his extradition to the United States is approved, John McAfee is found dead. The official ruling is suicide. Conspiracy theories explode, and supporters refuse to believe it. But one truth remains undeniable. John McAfee lived exactly as he wanted: defiant, paranoid, and untouchable. A man who turned his life into performance art, a digital age outlaw who challenged governments, and for a long time, won. He once said, "It is better to live one day as a lion than 1,000 years as a lamb." And whether you believe he escaped one final time or not, John McAfee made sure the world would never forget him.